everyone, welcome back to the Curator Shelf and happy Mabon or autumn equinox or fall equinox or however you want to call it. I'm hoping that everybody's having a really good day today. It's a chilly but cold afternoon in Brussels, and I really wanted to do a video midweek now because I've seen that there's a lot of topics out there. My videos are getting longer and longer, and I thought, why don't I just do like a pop-up video midweek every now and then? This is something new. Let's see how it goes. And the objective is basically to cover some topics which I'm not getting to do in my weekend videos, and I just thought, yeah, this is a good way to just kind of like discuss or like respond to some of the discussions that are out there. So yes, I just wanted to first of all say that I'm really glad that these topics are coming up. The one that that's been on my mind, and I was just thinking, how am I gonna like talk about this? Is there's loads of stuff actually. There's tarot ethics. There's like not my aesthetics. There's hearth and home. All these beautiful, wonderful tags. The one that I want to talk about today is not my aesthetics, and that's been on my mind actually for a few weeks now. Now, I know that already Anna from Astral Lady has done a video on it, Mistress Ray has done a video on it, and I'm not sure if Mary Grace Fuller had done an actual video on it or she had talked about it in her video, but the topic's kind of like, I think for me, mixed up between two different things, or well, two similar things. One is to do with aesthetics, and the other one is this whole thing about soul decks and and what that actually means and so forth. So I kind of like am wrapping it into one. I'm not sure if that's correct, but I just thought I'd just do a video on both together. And the reason why is that it's kind of like touching upon topics I think that we've already heard about, which is to do with impulsive buying, compulsive buying, getting lost, feeling overwhelmed, thinking, why did I buy all of this? Basically, all of those kind of like topics. And it's been on my mind since last year, actually. So let me just rewind a little bit. I came back to tarot last year in August 2020 or July 2020, and there was a reason for that. The reason was that I was talking to a friend, and it was something that I was trying to deal with, and I was just really, really stuck on an issue. And spontaneously, I had no idea of this, but she said, let me read some cards for you. And I was like, okay. And all of a sudden, she started like laying out some oracle cards, I think it was, and maybe there was some tarot cards in there, but there was definitely oracle cards in there. And the message she gave and the reading she did was just beautiful. It was just so nice. It was like really helpful at that moment. It was very affirming. It was grounding. It was real. It wasn't kind of like, well, like, pigs in the sky kind of thing. It was just real. And one of the decks that she used, and I'm going to now show you it, is she used this deck, which is, sorry, try and pull it out now. It's the Kyle Gray Angels and Ancestors Oracle deck. And I recall she used this because she did like a set of cards, and I think she was mixing tarot and different oracles together. I mean, it was a real melange, but she mixed them together, and there was a card in there, and let me find it for you, but it just completely mesmerized me. And the card that she had in the reading, I mean, I'm sure it was just a random pull, but the card that she had really just took me by surprise. And where is it now? Now it's going to be like right at the bottom of this pack, right? I have to say, this has got to be one of the most beautiful decks ever. It's Kyle Gray. It's called Angels and Ancestors by Hay House. It's I think it was published a few years ago already. Very affordable mass market deck. And I actually think it's one of the best mass market decks we have, because the quality is just impeccable. The artistry is impeccable. And as I recall, this is Lily Moses. And I just want to check, but I'm pretty sure it is Lily Moses. Yes, artwork by Lily Moses. There you go. And the card that she had in the spread was this one, Sky Father. And the reason why I wanted to show this card right at the beginning before I go into this conversation is it was just so striking in the spread. And the thing is that I had first ventured into Tarot and Oracle cards for me to learn back in 2015, and I had never seen a card like that. Not in 2015. I'm sure they existed, beautiful cards, but I hadn't seen something like this that was easily accessible to me. And I recall at the time thinking, wow. And that's how I came back to tarot, because of a reading that she had done using, she had lots of decks. I think the decks that she collects are mostly mass market. Beautiful decks. It was a beautiful reading, just so vibrant and full of color. And I remember thinking, oh, I'd love to do that. I'd love to do that for myself, for others. I would love to be able to do a spread like that. And that's why I come to the hashtag tarot, not my aesthetic. And also about soul decks. So this is where, and I'm paraphrasing a lot here, and I might have got it wrong or mixed up or confused in my head. So I'm trying to understand the debate as people talk about it. But one of the things that I realize is that there is this whole debate about the soul deck and what's our soul deck, and I recall last year there was a lot of stuff about hug decks because we had the pandemic and people were stuck at home. They were feeling, I think there was a lot of vulnerability there, and people wanted something that they could just really be close to. And I recall also thinking, oh, I wonder what my soul deck is. And I remember when I came back to Tarot and Oracle cards, I was buying cards, but I was thinking, oh, I wonder what really clicks with me. And so I was buying and I was buying and I was buying. And at one point I realized, I'm just buying decks here. This is ridiculous. And so I stopped buying cards like that, and then I kind of like slowed down. I just thought, okay, this is crazy. And I slowed down. And I realized at that moment that, and I think it's Mary Grace Fuller that talks about this, there was a part of it which was to do with, I felt like it was a bit of like a marketing thing. And she mentions the word marketing, but I personally thought, maybe not marketing, but like, I'm just falling for that trick in the book of just trying to find the perfect whatever and buying a lot basically in the process. And that is, by the way, got nothing to do with people who use the tag or the term soul deck in the tarot community, because I do believe it genuinely is genuine for them and it exists. But I had got into my head that I needed to find something ASAP, which is different from finding something that clicks. There's a difference between finding something that clicks and finding something for the sake of finding it so I can say I have it. So I don't know if I'm making sense here, but it's more to do with my own purchasing rather than actually the term. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. But yeah, so anyway, kind of like, and the reason why also it was like a profound moment for me, and this was end of last year at some point, was also because there is a fantastic fashion vlogger called Christina, who does, and I can't remember her second name now. Her channel used to be called Style Apotheca, and now it's called, if you just give me a moment, I can actually find the channel for you, because she did this. She's very well known within the fashion community, and she has been doing fashion vlogging, I think, at least 3 or 4 years now, if not more. I've been following her for at least 2 or 3 years myself. I do recall that. I've been following her since 2018, so yeah, that's already. But anyway, it used to be called Style Apotheca. I think now she's changed it to her full name, and she now actually, Christina Marcus, I think that's how we pronounce it, Marcus. And she does fantastic YouTube videos of fashion, but really talking about the issues around compulsive buying. And then her story, and I'm just like here doing really a quick summary, so it's better to watch her videos actually, is about the fact that back in, I think, 2017, 2018, she was buying clothes to make for YouTube, these styling videos, but they weren't anything to do with her. It wasn't really her style, or maybe they weren't clothes that she would naturally wear in her everyday life. And it led to a huge credit card debt, and she also acknowledges she wasn't paying her student loan off. And she goes through this whole process where on YouTube she admits that she's in debt and that she's no longer going to be, playing to that game basically of compulsively buying and then, and getting into debt and trying to do videos. But the videos don't really reflect, the clothing doesn't really reflect her own personal interest and taste. And it was just fantastic, to see Christina go through that evolution, because I recognize it for sure. But the crucial bit why I'm bringing her in is because she did a video once called Trying to Find the Perfect White Button-Down Shirt. Or she talks about it in a video. And it really was a very good video where she was like, she kept buying compulsively these white shirts, thinking she'll have the perfect one, to go with like dresses and suits and trousers and I don't know what else, like jeans. But it was like this whole video about like, trying to find the perfect item and then just compulsively basically buying. And I recognized it because I can do that with like things like black blazers or jeans or the perfect boots. But it's compulsively buying, thinking the next one is going to be the right one. And the reason why I want to bring it into this video was that I do recognize that when I started to think, I'll just have the perfect deck, it fell into that game that I was playing in my mind of just basically then getting items and not really knowing which one it was. So I also went through this phase where I was just like, slow down. And I was like, maybe buy 1 or 2 decks a month max. And I really, really went into a slow process. And it's been really good for me because then I had a really long wish list and I started to recognize what do I actually want from this wish list and crossing things off. And some parts of my wish list, the item was on there for like 4 months. And I was like, okay, I'm going to get it because like, obviously I love this. But, and so I'm coming back to the tarot conversation because it was a really, really important point where it's not so much that there is no such thing as a soul deck, but it was more kind of like my thinking behind it and my process behind it. So I want to then go on to like, what has been my journey on this particular issue of soul decks and then aesthetics. That's the best way I can put it. And I began studying tarot I'm looking around, with the Radiant Rider-Waite-Smith. Now this was the deck that I learned on, and that's because I live in Belgium, and at the time in 2015 we just didn't have access to that much tarot decks. They'd come over from the UK, and I think when I put it into the search engine there was like some that showed up, and honestly speaking they all confused me, and I needed to learn the 78 cards. And what I heard again and again was what I read was it's best just to learn first the cards and the symbols. So this was the deck that I learnt on, Now I think this is a great, I'd call it the bread and butter deck. It's a great bread and butter deck. It's got the symbols. It's got the imagery that I need to understand what's going on in the card. Basically, it has all the components that I need to make a story. And this is the deck that really kind of like, broke me in some ways. This was the deck that just helped me to understand what is it that goes on when I line up 5 random cards from this deck. What is the story they tell? And so it has been a fantastic purchase for me in terms of learning the tarot. And I combined it with some basic tarot books, and it was just perfect. But this is part of the story, and I want to then go on further from there. I learned all 78 cards. It took me months and months, and of course I have a job, and I'm doing other things as well, so it's not like this is the only thing I'm doing. And at some point, and I think this is about 8 or 9 months into the process, and I don't always pick up my cards every day. Look at that Queen of Wands, one of my favorite cards. I don't pick up my cards all the time, but what I realized was I got bored, and that's the best way I can put it. I got bored with this deck. And I remember at the time just feeling a little bit deflated. That's the best way I can put it. Because it almost felt like I was reading a story, but I wasn't reading my story, or I wasn't reading a story that's pertinent to myself. I was reading a story that was pertinent to somebody. It was almost like I was reading a book, and it was a lovely book, and it was a fiction book, but it didn't have anything to do with me. And it was, that's the word I'm looking for. It was impersonal. And so I love this deck. I still use this deck. This is a deck that's very good if I need to do a quick reading. It's something, somebody calls me and says, look, I really need your help. I need you to do a reading for me. It's a go-to deck for sure. I can quickly pick up things from it. But this is the key bit. And I've heard people say, well, then this is your soul deck because this is the one in your hands and this is the one you use. The deck that I began with was also the deck that I ended up putting down and then discontinuing learning tarot because I found it too boring, honestly speaking. And that's the truth. That's the truth of my story behind the Rider-Waite-Smith. And so, yeah, it just did not capture me enough. And I believe that tarot needs to feel personal. There needs to be a personal connection to it. Otherwise, it's always I'm reading something that's like 3 layers away from me. So last year I came back to tarot and I did like randomly buy decks because I didn't know what I was looking for. It was like, I went from like 3 decks or 4 decks to like seeing like three or 4 different decks of my own from 2015 to seeing something like, hundreds. And it was almost like they were coming at me. And I was just like, this is really confusing. So I went onto YouTube and I started listening to people like Isa Papez, Dawn Michelle from Boho Tarot, also Mermaid, Nina from Shuffle Tarot, she's great too. And I'm going to miss out some that I absolutely love, Anna, also of Astral Lady, and there's just so many I'm going to miss out that I love watching. They do great videos. But those are the people where I was just like, and then, yeah, there's Kelly from The Truth and Story. Those are the people who I was just like, I'm completely lost here. And I needed something kind of like, I needed these videos to at least show me the cards before I do another Amazon buy and spend like 300 euros or like book depository. And I don't even know what I'm buying basically. So the videos have been their videos were very, very helpful and instrumental in helping me to kind of like go into like, wait, what am I actually looking for? And it just happened to be a time where I think in 2019, there'd been a lot of videos around decks of the decade. So that was a really good way for me to just like see people's favorite decks over a 10-year period. I mean, that's a really easy way to just get into somebody's collection basically. And I found that instrumental for me learning. So I'm going to go into the whole not my aesthetics bit now. So the deck that I learned on in the end was the deck that also put me off. That's the truth. So when I came back, it's almost like, we had to start off with like a whole new plate. That's why I thought about it. And I'm looking around because I'm trying to find the decks that I pulled out for this video. These are some of the decks that really opened my eyes again. Now, you've all seen the Druidcraft and how much I love it. So I'm not going to pull it out for this video. Otherwise, it's just going to be me and 10 videos of the Druidcraft, which is, I don't think is helpful. The deck I want to show here is the Crow Tarot by MJ Cullinan. This was a deck, I used it, I think I bought it in September and I used it in October last year. I used it when we went back into lockdown, which was really, really miserable here. And this was a deck that just, it gave me a whole new perspective on Rider-Waite-Smith. It helped me to see that Rider-Waite-Smith could be just something else, it helped me to see that the Rider-Waite-Smith is not everything that I think it is. To look for symbols that I had never seen before, to see, I think the crows are very intelligent creatures. And MJ did a fantastic job in really, for me, bringing me onto the journey. And so this is where I get to it. The deck had a personal touch for me. And there's something about the art, I know it's collage art, but there's something about it where I can feel the movement inside the deck. It doesn't feel static, while the classic RWA Smiths, for some reason, the images feel very, very static. This is a deck that for the first time ever, I could feel the wind through those feathers. It's almost like I can go and pluck those apples out and taste them. That's the harvest there. And this was the first time ever where I learned this is what it's like to have a deck that really strikes a chord, like, oh, it's speaking to me. It's showing me the same symbols, but I recognize them in a completely different way. This is the three. This is the Three of Wands. And, this is classic, looking out onto that journey and just about to venture forth. And the crow needs to cross what looks like cross cliffs. It's got to do this crossing. There's a sea that looks to me tumultuous, and there's a guiding star. It's a deck that really just, one card. This is one card has so much depth and layers to peel away. This is movement, but it's also got the fire from the sunflowers. It's got the poppies. The poppies remind me of mourning. So maybe it's about leaving behind things. Maybe it's about communicating a mourning. Maybe it's about communicating letting go. The tree at the side, the branches of that tree, it almost feels like, this tree is naked, but then from a certain point, it's flourishing. These cards, for me, the cleverness of the art here, and I think that's what made this deck so special for me, was that, I could take one card and just pull out so much, I was going to say symbology, that doesn't even make sense, pull out so many symbols from it. It has a symbology of its own. And the other part of it, which I really want to say, is that the colors are just so vibrant. I mean, can you have something that more vibrant and vivacious than the Strength card here? The roses in the hair. So this line is being beautified, and then the crow is on top, and the crow is kind of like, for me, it looks as if the crow is containing the energy of that lion, and keeping it kind of like, under a certain kind of control. I want to look at this properly. It looks like it's blinding the lion, actually, but it's closing the eyes. Maybe it's a way of saying, you won't fear. Just go within and find the strength within. Find the courage within, the heart of the lion within. That's the way I look at this card, and I feel almost like I can go wandering in those fields, and be next to that lion and be next to that crow. And that was when the first time ever where I really felt like I was being beckoned into the card. And so that's why I want to go into this hashtag of not my aesthetic, because for me, aesthetics have played a role in my connection to the tarot and my connection to the 78 cards, and whether or not the story becomes a story that I can relate to. The story becomes a story. I mean, look at that Queen of Wands. I love the Queen of Wands. But, the story of those lions looking straight at me, and, and asking me, do I have that fire within? So, yeah, that's my story there of, like, aesthetics. I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense. Another deck I want to show, because this is interesting. I did come to the idea, do I have also an issue with the fact that the classic Rider-Waite-Smith doesn't have diversity? And I have thought about that quite a lot, as a person of colour myself. For me, and this is why I want to talk about this, is that I realised that wasn't what was putting me off either. I go back to statics and aesthetics, the static nature of the classic Rider-Waite-Smith. But when I look at the RWS clone called The Golden Art Nouveau by Julia Massaglia. Now, I love this deck, and I think some of you know that I love this deck. I picked this deck up because I wanted an Art Nouveau deck, but I think I got a lot more in exchange. I wanted Art Nouveau, and Julia Massaglia gave me something else completely. She gave me a lot more, I think, than just Art Nouveau. This really helped me to see that I like the Rider-Waite-Smith. So we go back to the Rider-Waite-Smith, the classic Rider-Waite-Smith, because it is an RWS clone. But she completely redid the illustrations. They're of a quality that I just, I'm mesmerized by. She completely redid the illustrations. The art is phenomenal. The movement of that Knight of Swords, I mean, for me, it looks like I just want to get out of the way of that horse. That horse looks like it's I don't want to mess with it, And not just the ornateness, but there is something about her detail, and I'm not an art expert, so I don't know how to describe the art here, but her attention to detail and the way she captures me in this deck, even though it's a classic RWS, I was thinking about this. I think for me, this is a deck which almost feels like it's the RWS illustrations, but having evolved, having become human in nature. So that when I look at the Queen of Pentacles, I see that she's really invested in holding on to her coins and enjoying the company and the prestige of that falcon, and the way her hair's been done, and the ornateness of her clothing and that robe, and then the expression on her face. To me, it captures the Nine of Pentacles in a completely different manner. It beckons me into her, what looks like some kind of a grove, some kind of a, she's got a garden, but she's got this luscious grove, and it almost as if she's got a lot of wealth that's hidden as well. And I'm a Virgo rising, so I love the Nine of Pentacles. But you can just see that this deck holds so much emotion. For me, it holds emotion. It holds you see, we're back to staticness here now, but because she's put in those birds in the background and the fallen leaves, even though it's static, there's a certain way of communicating that, which is, it's not as still as the original RWS for me. This High Priestess, I mean, calm, the full figure of a woman. I like the fact that we can see her breasts, not of course unclothed, but she really shows her feminine figure in this. All the symbology is there, but just the way that crescent moon at the bottom of her feet, it's almost as if it's resting amongst her robes, and then her robes are becoming flowing water. It's a way that's been done, which, I mean, you can see he's moving away, but the flow of his robes and the wind or the breeze or whatever that's riding through them, that movement, it's exquisite. That's the word I want to use. It's exquisite. And this Queen of Wands is going to be my favorite Queen of Wands ever. But it's a deck that just again and again shows emotion for me, which the original Pamela Coleman Smith artwork just doesn't. And so the reason why I want to bring this back is because, I appreciate that this might come across as a bit shallow, but aesthetics do matter to me, and they matter in me connecting and feeling as if I am experiencing those emotions, or I can tap into those emotions. So this is a really long video, it's 30 minutes, and I'm going to stop here. I hope this has been of interest to some people. I'll see you hopefully in a few days for my next video, which is on the Everyday Witch, my deep dive, and see you soon. Bye.